Steelers fans, welcome into the Noll Road. It is Steelers Mock Draft Monday. Does a historic combine put tight end in the mix at 21? We're going to look at the latest Steelers mock draft results. We're going to hop in our simulator, see who falls to 21. But kind of the question to kick things off, considering how freakish these tight end performances are, should the Steelers be considering one at 21, considering a tight end day two? Here we go.
To the corner of the end zone. Oh, for a touchdown!
Yeah, boy, it is draft season. I'm Gavin Dawson, 27-year sports radio veteran. Yes, you can see it in the beard. I'm up there, okay? He is New Bear Lesniewski, my favorite football Neanderthal, half gray bearded himself, buddy. How we doing?
Have kids, they said. It'll be fun, they said.
Yes. Okay. Like the video. If you like this video, man, we'd love it if we can get engagement any kind we can. Leave a comment down below. What do you think of Steelers and tight end? And consider subscribing. We're going long form dang near every day here on the Noll Road. So let's start with just a general conversation of how we're looking at tight end. I think, the Jonnu Smith experiment did not go well. I think this tight end class lines up really well with what they need because they have the mauler who can catch in Washington. They have Freiermuth who's versatile and solid, but not maybe great at any one thing. I feel like they need the deep threat, potential big play tight end, and we got some guys to choose from in this draft class, don't we, buddy?
Absolutely. And it's really funny, too, because, obviously, I've said this a million times, and Pittsburgh's very own Rob Gronkowski is the greatest to ever do it, besides Pittsburgh's very own Mike Ditka. And when you come through some of these, the new age guys, the basketball on grass types, and the ones who actually played basketball, Tony Gonzalez, through Jimmy Graham, Antonio Gates, and of course, Kelsey of late. In Pittsburgh, you need to block. And Freiermuth, even when he wasn't getting the ball, he was putting his body in harm's way. He was a much more aggressive dude. I think he was a little bit pissed off that he wasn't getting the ball at all. And then you take it out on someone wearing the opposite color jersey. This draft is really interesting because the number one guy that I would have been pounding the table for and probably overdrafting might not play this year, depending on how the medical checks out with Oscar Delp's foot. And if that's a thing that lingers, for some time or requires surgery or screws or obviously like bated breath on that news, I think there's a lot of really pretty, agility, warrior, route tree types. I don't know if there's a true Pittsburgh tight end that I like unless you're talking about doing what a lot of these mocks are doing, like Sean Payton thinking he's a tight end away from the Super Bowl and going all the way up into the teens for Kenyon Sadiq.
Yeah, there you go. The Oregon Duck has the fastest tight end time.
Just beat Pittsburgh's very own Scorin Dickerson by 1/100th of a second. And shout out to Scorin for handling it with aplomb. He was just like for Sadiq. And I mean, that was a record that had stood for a long time that a lot of people didn't realize was his.
The only problem I got here with Sadiq is some of the comps, aren't favorable for him. Like you see some of the highlights that he's put out there, you see the athleticism, but then you're reminded of guys like Mike Gesicki who did similar things. And I would be overall a little nervous about taking tight end at 21.
Gesicki's a different dude though. Penn State's very own. And that's why I think I was a little bit leery of Freiermuth at first before he really showed that he was willing to put the work in and did so with that unique connection that he had early with Ben. But that's a different body type. I mean, I think Sadiq's much more physical and much more physically impressive than Mike Gesicki.
Okay. Now, what do you think if we get to round 2, day 3, and we start talking about some of these other guys like Eli Stowers at Vanderbilt? He had a record setting for tight ends vertical jump at 45 and a half inches, just a half inch from the overall record. And I would say when it comes to Steelers team building, Jonnu Smith last year kind of proved that they can definitely be attracted to a detached guy who's going to do the majority of his work on the outside. So you have Stowers from Vanderbilt, who made so many big plays downfield. He is the definition of just a giant wide receiver. You also have Max Klare at Ohio State, just a real natural catcher of the ball. I like watching him. Good routes, good yak ability, but he's not a blocker at all either. But it's really cool to watch how naturally that he catches the ball. And it's rare because usually your tight ends are big, strong, traitsy guys, or they run really good routes in the 4.4 range. This guy has like wide receiver type of hands. It'd be interested to see how much the Steelers would appreciate that. And then Sam Roush is a very interesting player as well, as far as a guy who can run block on early downs, but also release. And if you want two of those guys to go along with Washington and get into 12 and really show run and then have those guys release, very good athletic scores. I mean, a faster 3-cone than Kyle Pitts. So you're not in Sam Roush, you're not just getting blocking and a serviceable athlete with decent hands. He jumped 38.5 inches. He might be the both worlds guy as well.
So let's get one thing straight. Eli Stowers is a big wide receiver. I mean, he's not an NFL tight end for a minute. And I'm going to say his name wrong now that I'm thinking about it, but the Raritan kid out of Notre Dame, I know, is someone that a lot of people like, and he ran 4.62. I looked up right as Bauer Sharp was going and was really interested to see what he was going to run at 4.63. These guys get so compacted, right? As thing you love about Stanford tight ends is there's a long track record of Stanford tight ends being really good in the NFL, and that program has just churned them out forever. It seems like, big, tough kid, sound blocker, really smart. People talk about how I'm picking things up quickly. I mean, that's a Stanford guy. And to your point, he's more athletic than you think. He quote unquote only ran 4.7, but it's not like all the guys after Sadiq blew the doors off. Stowers isn't really a tight end, so his 4.51 you can throw out a little bit. But when you start talking about guys like, Raritan and Bauer Sharp and Cuevas out of Bama, those guys are in the 4.6s. So it's not like Roush is way off that. And might be a really good example of a potential, black and gold Pittsburgh Steelers type of tight end. I think there's something really interesting, though, about how much you value getting open, how much you value, right, the route tree and all those things, because there really isn't a whole lot different between Max Klare, who's most people's number 2, and Eli Stowers. And when you look at where those guys are going in terms of where they're being drafted, height, weight, size, speed, like limited blocking. So, like, what are you really going to be asking these guys to do? Because even Freiermuth, when he's attached as a wing, like, you don't want him in there for the blocking. You want him in there. We all want to see him return to seam stretching, right? So now if you start talking to me about Max Klare and talking about his route tree, okay, what do you ding him on besides the blocking? Inconsistent hands. What else do you start dinging these guys and picking them apart? I think it's going to be really interesting to see how much the medicals come back on Delp, how much the agility, pro day, individual stuff goes with a guy like Roush. And then, from there, how much you can kind of get teased by some of these guys in their 40 times.
Yeah. And then the other interesting thing is how much more is Mike McCarthy going to want to use tight ends? He, very, very traditional West Coast offense. Mike McCarthy might be more of a West Coast purist than anybody. Those guys, you tight end. And then Angelico's coming from Minnesota, where they obviously prioritized and had multiple tight ends every season he was there that could get the job done, even if they weren't necessarily household names. So how's the scheme shift, change that? And how much tight end are they going to want to do? I think is a big question. I would love it if they would get into a mode of running and play action, but I don't think with Mike McCarthy it is going to be a step in that direction. So we just have to hope that Aaron Rodgers and Arthur Smith just weren't a perfect fit, and that Mike McCarthy with Aaron Rodgers can be better and get more of that middle of the field passing element that they really struggled with, regardless of quarterbacks and receivers for many years now.
You know who's really intriguing to me, and this is a guy we've gotten some questions about, and I went and looked at him, a little bit more, but who's a guy down in your neck of the woods, Trigg, the kid at Baylor. You know, he had like 34 plus inch arms, and you know, he's like 6'4", 240. So, you know, long, rangy, I mean, just speed. You see some absolute wow stuff from him on film. And when you start thinking about stretching the field and running by linebackers, or, you know, being able to body up safeties and still having, you know, footwork and like that big whiteout stuff, getting in and out of breaks and the timing to do so, and being able to go up and make those highlight reel stuff. But then at the same time, it's like, you don't ever want to see the word lazy thrown around. And I've seen lazy and synonyms for lazy where, like, dudes get in his kitchen and cook. Like, dudes blitz and, you know, or do, and I'm talking about run and pass blitz, where, like, it's not just him missing and not having the athletic ability. You're like, dude, why didn't you just fucking block that guy? Or you see a route and you go, is this going to be a guy on the backside that Aaron Rodgers is going to have to worry about? You know, because if anybody can truly get the ball at any time in a West Coast and in these simulated pressure worlds that we live in, of the, you know, Brian Flores of the world, you need a guy. And now we're talking about a young guy who has inconsistency, who you don't, and then now you're talking yourselves out of a fit with Aaron Rodgers specific. But where you do start thinking about it is the value of where you're going to be able to get Trigg versus where you would have to take a guy like Sadiq. And that's why this is yet another position where you talk about your board, your evaluation, your system, your plan, and sticking to it. And you have those guys that say, hey, we would reach, and here's why. And if that reach comes in the middle of the draft, then you feel a little bit more comfortable with it.
All right, as we do on every Noll Road Mock Draft Monday, we open the show looking at players in a position group. Then we get into some mock drafts, and that is the portion of the show we're going to jump into right now. PFF has delivered their post-draft mock. No change at the top. They're all saying Mendoza. Most of them are saying Reese next. We jump all the way down to 21. Right before 21, McCoy and C.J. Allen went. Avion Terrell to the Cowboys. And then at 21, it's the quarterback Ty Simpson that I know is going to give you nightmares by the time we arrive. Venga Awani at Penn State, guard 22. I might rather have him for this year. Caden Proctor, 23. I think the Steelers are probably going to let it ride at left tackle. Jordan Tyson's there at 24. Injured guy, hell of a player. Caden McDonald, we did shows about him last week, is available at 25. Jacob Rodriguez at 26. Crazy. And there's Sadiq at 27. I think I would rather have the next 6 or 7 players than what the Steelers ended up doing at 21. And I'm a guy who, you know, if you've been watching the show, clearly I like Ty Simpson.
I mean, you talked about Ione. I would rather trade off 21 to the bottom of the first round and take whoever the BPA is, you know, particularly if it's my guy, Colton Hood, and then grab Bisontis, turn around at the top of the second round and go get your guard and give JPJ a running mate and solidify, you know, the only hole that you're projected to have up front, whether it's 8, 18, or anyone but Ty Simpson. Like, give me Drew Aller versus freaking Will Howard in Latrobe, or give me death.
You're never going to hear the end of it when Ty Simpson goes out there and balls his rookie year. Never going to listen to you about another quarterback after this thing hits for me.
It's not that
Let's
I don't
go
like
to Yahoo, though.
At all. I just don't like him at, like you just said, about at 21 versus the other dudes, with Rodgers coming back. It's the totality of the thing.
Well, you know, you got to overdraft quarterback no matter where you take him.
But I got Kenny Pickett scar tissue at 20, bro. When the next quarterback was Malik Willis at 86, and they're about to pay him $40 million off 2 starts.
We go to Nate Tyson, Charles McDonald, Yahoo, Mendoza, and Reese. Styles 3. I don't know if I've seen him that high. Ruben Bain at 4, Mauano at 5. Please stop with the pop-up videos, Yahoo. Jesus. Okay, we come to 21. And, okay, we come to 21. I'm sorry. I can't scroll because pop-up videos.
There it is.
Lemon.
You give me pop-up ads and we make lemonade, baby.
All right, let me get out of this screen before it crashes my browser. But Mekhi Lemon is the wide receiver at 21. I think we're all dancing in the streets for that one. And if he's going to be an eccentric or different personality, I'll let the coaches worry about it because I love that pick.
Yeah, so I absolutely don't care anymore. I saw one person, literally one person commented on our last video and said, I actually like the vibes, and we need guys like this who don't give a bleep what anybody thinks. This is and it all it took was one person letting me think about those Mickey Mouse gloves and those Rob Gronkowski hands from the slot demon Mekhi Lemon, who, oh, by the way, will go hunt green grass at X or at Z with all these rumors with DK and Brian Thomas Jr. and everything else that might happen with Dobbs at all. I don't. He's wide receiver 1 in this draft for me. I don't even care. I'm saying it and I'm standing by it.
Yeah, and I would love to talk about getting a wide receiver in the second or third day as well, because it is a draft that stretches nicely. But if you get Lemon at 21, I would agree. I think you got the best wide receiver prospect in the draft. I might like Jordan Tyson's game a little bit better. And he damn near put up the record at 225 with like 31 benches, even though his butt was off the bench.
He cheated a little bit.
But he's injury prone. So I'm taking Lemon. Okay, let's go to Ryan Wilson, CBSSports.com, longtime mocker. There's Mendoza. He's going Bailey at 2, Tate and Styles and
you
down.
Really don't like Tate. If Tate were to fall and it were to be, you're really off him. Because, I mean, there's still a whole bunch of people who consensus think Tate's 1-1, even though he wasn't 1 on his own team because of Jeremiah Smith.
He is a polarizing player.
No, sorry, yeah, I wasn't talking to you. I hate this pick.
Okay, Denzel Boston. Speaking of polarizing wide receivers, some people absolutely love this guy. I'm just kind of out on tall guys who don't explode, don't have power. At least with Brazel, you get speed. It's like, great, he's going to go 15 yards down the field and get into a 50-50 and win more than your average wide receiver. I don't know how much that works in today's game or how much I need that when I'm evaluating other traits and where I'm willing to sacrifice. I'm not willing to sacrifice yak. I'm not willing to sacrifice get off. I'm not willing to sacrifice in and out of his breaks quickly just because you're tall with good hands. That seems very risky to me.
Yeah, and you're talking about value here. You know, Brazel at 50 versus Boston at 21. Give me Brazel all day and twice on Sunday, you know, because of what else you would be able to do here at 21 and solve two problems at once. If Mekhi Lemon's off the board, I don't even want to hear about Denzel Boston because he got bodied by Pons. And I don't want to hear about these rangy 6'4" guys who are getting just eaten alive by 5'8", 5'9" corners. Because if that happens to you on Saturday, then the dudes on Sunday who are bigger, faster, and stronger. And look, Pons is going to acquit himself fine, I'm sure, and be a good guy on Sunday. Take nothing away from that little sprite of a probably really good nickel for a really long time. I need you to dominate on Saturday to take you at 21 over Ione, over what I was just talking about with, you know, moving down and taking Hood and Basontis. I think there's just better options than him, not just in one-to-one, like guy to guy, but also in the totality of the big picture.
All right, good stuff. Here it is, the Noll Road. Please like that video. Leave a comment down below if you have thoughts. It is time now for the draft simulator portion of our mock draft Monday here, Steelers fans. It's a lot of fun. You go to profootballnetwork.com, you hit how many rounds you want and who your team or teams are. What do you say we do two rounds?
Oh, dude, I'll do the whole thing if you want to. I'll do it twice.
I don't know if we're going to do that quite yet, but I will get you 2 rounds here. And then you hit simulate, and we're off and running with Mendoza. Tate number 2 to the Jets. There's a fail. Bailey and Lomu at 6 to the Browns. Okay, we might get something really interesting here with players starting to fall. Thieneman at 14. Wow. Okay, Caleb Downs all the way at 17. That's what I was wondering where he was going to go.
Omar Cooper Jr. at 20. Mekhi Lemon's still on the board. Wait, hold on though. Are they want you to move down a pick? Or they're going to take him because they're going to let old man Allen walk. So are you willing to give up? So what I would do here is hit counter and try to ask for something ridiculous. And if they want to do it, fine. But, you know, that's the purpose of having fun with this. They're absolutely coming up to take our man.
Yeah, I don't think we can let them, buddy. You know, if you If you let Makai Lemon go, that's a decade of regret.
There it is.
With the 21st pick, what happened? What happened? Did I
It just
accidentally
it reset on its own because you're probably on the hotel Wi-Fi, huh?
Yes, I am. Well, I'm on a hotspot, actually. The hotel Wi-Fi sucks. Okay, we're going to have to restart it there because we lost it, but we just took Makai Lemon at 21. Let's re-rack another 2-round mock draft for your Pittsburgh Steelers here on the Noll Road. Tell us what you think down below. Leave a comment, and also consider subscribing if you like long-form content. Wow, it went Tate number 2 again. Did he have that good of a combine? I thought it was a polarizing combine.
Yeah, he ran 4.54, but he's just so damn smooth. And if you like him at all, I think it's easy to just fall in love with all the different things you project him to do. I don't know about 2. Oh man, Lemon just went 19. So the Titans came up and got Lemon for Cam Ward at 19. I wonder click on what they gave up to get him. So click on that blue circle next to Makai. Wait, hide that. Click on the blue circle. What did they give up? So they came up from 35. They gave up 35, 66, and a future 2 to come up and take Makai Lemon from us.
Yeah.
My goodness, that's aggressive.
That's a bad beat right there, but you accept it and you move on. By the way, I don't think any teams are giving up significant draft capital, and by that I mean first and seconds in next year's draft because of the quarterbacks and because of the strength. Sure. Maybe Carolina feels like they got it in Bryce Young, but I'm like, guys, we can't give up next year's 2. We can't give up next year's anything.
But now you're pairing. Oh, you were talking about Carolina. So Tennessee needs bodies for Cam Ward, right? I mean, they absolutely. But Carolina taking Tet last year, sitting down there at 35 and or sitting at 19 and moving to 35. They need to rebuild. They're still suffering from the Bryce Young trade. Remember, they sent DJ Moore and all those picks out of town, right? I mean, you go get Tet and you see how much of a difference one guy can make in 1 year. They have visions of being difficult beat. Talk about bad beats. Carolina Panthers don't want to just sneak in and get run out of the wild card round. So who's on the board for us? Thieneman goes 20 to the Cowboys. That's a great pick for them.
Concepcion is there. I like him, even though he's got the drops.
Can you move down and still get Concepcion?
CJ Allen is there. Colton Hood is there.
Yeah, now you're just putting
McDonald.
Loving up on.
Yeah, I think if you wanted to talk to me about trading down in this situation, the offer is 56, 81, and 88 from Jacksonville. You would have 5 third-round picks.
Wow. But so is anyone keeping you in the first round? Yeah, so like this is interesting, right? Where 24, you could still get Concepcion. Hell, most of the board, you're going to lose, 21, 20, you're going to lose 3 guys. I can do math. Look at me.
Let's accept that. Let's accept that and see what happens.
So they came up to get Ty Simpson. Sorry, Shador.
Okay, and then Kansas City's offering you to come back to 40.
Wow, Freeling to the Egos, fan of. So that was Ty Simpson and probably the 2 most athletic tackles in the draft. And now you picked up a 107 for your time, and you still got Omar. Now it's Omar Cooper versus Concepcion. What a debate. And now you're asking yourself, because there's another receiver on the board, so look at 26. Buffalo could potentially be in the mix for Concepcion, not just because his father loves them. If you saw the video after he had the stuttering thing, what a great rise of support for the Twitterverse behind the young man. But San Francisco's right behind them, right? So Buffalo and San Francisco, you got to seriously consider you're losing one of, if not both, Omar Cooper Jr. and Concepcion. And now you're into the Skylar Bell, Chris Brazzell, Zachariah Branch type part of the wide receiver conversation. So if you want a round 1 wide receiver, are Buffalo or San Francisco trying to come up? No. So you got to ask yourself if you trust being able to get past them or if you're pulling the trigger on Cooper or Concepcion here.
Yeah, how would you compare and contrast Cooper, who I saw a comp to Deebo Samuel?
That was a weird one for me. Yeah.
Both are going to be yak monsters, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that I thought a couple weeks ago is people were more in line with in terms of Omar Cooper with like the Stephon Diggs types of comparisons because of the silky smooth route running stuff. And then he shows up in Indianapolis and he runs 4.42, which is fine. And obviously, guys like Brandon Thompson who are much, much smaller, like 5'9", 164 pounds, going 4.26. But when Omar Cooper Jr. shows up at 6'200", I think you're thinking about him a little bit more substantially. I think Debo is a reach. Maybe you could say his play style is physical and he's going to run through tackles and stuff like that. I don't see the hit stick mode on offense that you got out of Debo just from a body type and a play style perspective. Cooper Jr. is probably the fastest offensive riser in this draft besides the tackle who just went, Monroe Freeling, and guys like Mike Washington Jr. who went 4.33, the big 233-pound running back out of Arkansas, right? So I don't know, man. I love the return game element that Concepcion brings as well, which is something that I think a lot about hedging my bet with Aaron Rodgers, where if you're going to, let's say DK Romeo Dobbs, we're talking about your third wide receiver. Is Aaron Rodgers going to trust any rookie, or is he going to be clamoring for 12 and 13 personnel, Ben Skowronek for his blocking, someone like Christian Kirk that you maybe get on the, Biggie Box value menu, and then you're not going to have Omar Cooper Jr. back there returning kicks. You're taking him in the first round to be your future number 2 move Z guy. Whereas Concepcion, even if he's not in the rotation because Rodgers is an angry old man, you're back there in the return game with him making plays.
Okay, I'm going to let you have this pick at 24 after a trade down in the 2026 NFL draft the Pittsburgh Steelers are taking.
KC Concepcion.
Congratulations to the Aggies, as I know they're fired up about this draft class. I think they have the most players at the combine this weekend. And man, the Aggies out of every university in the great state of Texas are just so fired up about their players. So I know there
goes Basontis in the top 40, maybe the best in the draft.
So we're running towards pick 52 here in the second round. Pick 53 for the Steelers actually in the second round. Trey Stuke just went off the board. Let me hide this. Let me see who's available.
Brazel's
you got your guy Brazel available, bro.
Oh, man.
Another Aggie, Cassius Howell, a short arm pass rusher. Kamari Ramsey and Genesis Smith, couple of safeties there from USC and Arizona, going to be very interesting. Keontae Scott, you want a war daddy nickel who's going to play the run and make big plays out of Miami. That's your guy right there. Emmett Johnson, running back from Nebraska. If I saw they were connected to Aaron Jones, I wouldn't mind running back at 53 either, though, especially if you're getting a playmaker like Johnson. What do you think here about your options?
Remember, though, you've got 76, 85,
maneuverability. I think you have to look at Jadarian Price if you're gonna be greedy AF. But I also think that Mike McCarthy wants his big back. And like, how early is too early to pull the trigger on 6'1", 233 going 4.33 Mike Washington? I mean, I've seen him going in the 40s all over other mocks that I've been doing. I mean, if you tell me you're planting a flag because Caleb Johnson just isn't him, then I mean, Mike Washington and Jalen Warren is a hell of a dynamic duo, Batman and Robin. And I also, when you scroll back up, I think Brazel's going to be really tough to think not, because people keep tweeting things like, I know he's not Randy Moss because nobody can be Randy Moss, but when you watch his film, all you see is Randy Moss. And what I would have done here, I think, and what I think the Steelers should seriously consider is if you're not going to target Keelan Rutledge, who's come up into the 70s from the 90s, based on where he's been, the guard out of Georgia Tech, and you're not going to take Ione in round 1, you really have to seriously consider coming up to the top of the round 2 to go get Chase Basontis. And if you're not going to do that and you're going to sit at 53, you have to very seriously consider Price. You have to very seriously consider Washington and making that splash play. I happen to be a fan of Caleb Johnson. I think people forget that he went 4.57 at 225 pounds and could be the banger off of Warren. And there's other backs that you can grab complimentary-wise, later in the draft. You have a really, really, really big ability here to solve 2 of the 3 things that I think make this a completely different team next year, which are the running buddy for JPJ, left guard, wide receiver. I think we all push wide receiver to the top, so I would be debating, left guard and that number 2 corner based on how the board falls, knowing that I'm also targeting guys like Kilgore. You talk about Nichols, the Julian Neal kid out of Arkansas. If you're going to talk about Mike Washington, let's talk about one of his teammates. This is a really rich draft where the Steelers have a lot of top 100 capital, and considering moving down like we did in the first round and maybe even all the way to the bottom of it, and still being able to get a tremendous player with that fifth-year team control while having more maneuverability to come up and target guys position by position in the 40s.
Tremendous options there for the Steelers. Again, that website, if you want to jump on and have fun yourself, profootballnetwork.com. We're back very soon to continue our combine reactions and our Steelers team building segments. Till then, we'll see you here on the Noll Road.